And here we are. Look at this. We're live again. This has become habit forming, man.
You know, it's 3 weeks
Here we are.
or
Look at
three
this. We're live again.
episodes in a row on time.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We're a couple minutes late, but better late than never.
Full disclosure, we were at risk of being completely late. My day was crazy. We were talking about that and it was touch and go there for a bit, but here we are. We have food, we have whiskey.
Cheers to you, sir.
Cheers to you, friends. We have water.
I have some tea. Some sweet tea.
You have tea? I have tea to you. A sweet tea.
Yeah, a little sweet tea.
That's a Southern boy.
Yeah, man. I told you I'm bored again. I'm a bored again.
So sweet tea. So sweet tea is not on our list of things to talk about, but we're gonna talk about it. So sweet tea.
Yeah, man.
Are you like Mima's sweet tea kind of sweet tea, or what are we talking about here?
Okay,
Half and half. What are we
you're
talking
the
about?
actual Southerner, so I need to know what Mima's. Are we talking like a pound of sugar, or what are we talking?
It ain't far from it, right? It's tea flavored Kool-Aid. That's Mima's sweet tea. Like, are you that hard in the paint on sweet tea? Or
that's probably a bit more diabetes than I'm probably
okay.
trying to aim for. I'm more of a sweet kind of like honey level of
okay,
sweetness.
Yeah, all right. So we're on the
thing.
same page then. We on the same page, right?
Yeah.
I'm a, if I'm ever at the restaurants and here we've got the big vats of tea and one is like sweet and the other one's like mean, like it's not sweet.
It's
so
syrup.
it's like, yeah, you put like a little bit of sweet tea and then I put unsweet. So
yeah, that would be what I would probably do also.
Okay,
for sure.
All right, yeah, there is a company here that makes tea. So what they do is make sweet tea. And if they'll sponsor us, I'll mention them. But they haven't sponsored us, so no name recognition for you, friends. But hey, Carmen, if you find this, reach out. We can hook that up. So they make this tea, right? And they're famous for it. And they use, I think, brown sugar, and a lot of it.
Oh, see,
and
that's a good flavor though too.
Ooh, it's good. It's good, but it is a lot, And I'm like, that's a little bit much. And then I was at a restaurant not too long ago, and they had like they had these bottles, like this tall, whatever.
Yep.
They're like normal sweet tea. They have unsweet. They have sugar-free but sweet, and then they have double sweet, which I didn't.
Oh no.
I didn't think it was possible, and I was tempted to grab it just to see.
Oh no.
And I thought better of it. And I was like, I don't know if I could handle that. In my old and infirm age.
I like how you described it at the initial. You said like Kool-Aid sweet tea.
Yeah,
because that's essentially what the first time I had sweet tea ever was in Southeast Texas, and the way I describe it is this is something that I would put in a bird feeder for hummingbirds. Like
yeah, it is. It is. I'm looking for energy to survive the day.
Exactly.
And it's all I'm gonna get is tea. Levels of stuff. Yeah.
That was.
Well, I didn't know that. All right, so you got some whiskey and sweet tea.
Yeah, man.
I feel like you got the makings of some sort of drink there, but not the Gold Rush, which is this week's episode name.
So I always joke about Texas tea, which if you're from Texas, Texas tea is oil, excuse me. But but to me, Texas tea is like some sweet tea with some whiskey in it, or whiskey with some iced tea. You know what I mean? So that to me is. But anyway,
that's your Texas tea. I've had your Texas toast. I've had the toast from Texas.
That's some good garlic, cheesy Texas toast is.
Yeah,
great.
have that with some lasagna or some spaghetti.
Hell
you got me.
Man.
You got me at that point.
Hands down, all the carbs.
So how you doing, buddy? Doing good?
I'm doing great, man. I'm fantastic. This week has been a good week. I think the work on my house is finally done, so I'm kind of settling into that. I'm getting used to having a house that actually is comfortable in this 105-degree weather, and I went and got a haircut today, beard trim a little bit.
Yeah, looks good.
All the adulting. Look at me go.
Got a great shape to it.
Yeah, man.
For those of us, or for those who are just listening, if you ever want to, you can see.
It sounds like it has good shape.
Yeah, it does. You can actually hear the reverberations. But if you're just listening on a podcast, if you're someone who always checks in on the audio and listens, you can catch us on YouTube live. We do this every other Tuesday night at 7 o'clock Central, 8 Eastern. That would be 5 Pacific. Today is August the 8th, right? And I should probably start these podcasts off with a date acknowledgement. But today is August the 8th, 2023. This is episode 7, Gold Rush. So what is the recipe for a gold rush, Sir Happa?
Oh, man. So
what is this drink?
One of the things that I've loved about doing the titles, so Seven and I talked about this originally, was what if we named every episode after a whiskey cocktail. Now, in hindsight, this may become problematic over time.
We're gonna yes. You realize pretty quickly there's like we get in the holiday season and we got a lot more options.
Sure.
But so from like Thanksgiving, right, from Thanksgiving to December, one time through we're good. So next year we may be looking at like at not whiskey, maybe gin or.
Oh yeah, we might have to switch up spirits or something, but
yeah.
But yeah, so I came across Gold Rush and it just sounded delicious, and when I sent the recipe to you, same thing you said was like, man, that sounds actually really good.
It sounds good, yeah.
2 ounces bourbon, 3/4 ounce lemon juice, freshly squeezed, which I'm always a proponent of freshly squeezed over the bottled stuff any day, right? 3/4 ounce honey syrup. So honey syrup is actually, I mean, you can make it yourself, but it's not easy to find in a liquor store either. They'll do syrups and whatever, but if you find a good liquor store, they'll have it. But honey syrup's a little bit harder to find. And then you garnish with a lemon twist. So a little citrusy. You know, you can't go wrong. Honey, bourbon, and lemon. Like, you just can't go wrong.
You really can't. And to be honest, I kind of want to try this because if you want to make the honey syrup yourself, which I would encourage people to do, you could add a lot of different flavors through that. And so this is one I actually want to try. I'm not having that tonight. Tonight I'm having some Four Roses small batch, but I'm having it straight. But I would like to try the Gold Rush. So thank you for that recipe.
If you do make your own honey syrup, add a little rosemary to a batch.
Yeah.
It's actually really good with a little rosemary. Really good.
I mean, you got to trust a guy with a beard as nicely shaped as that.
I'm just saying, man. I'm just saying. Good old Lakin over at Rosewood here in Austin. If you're a dude that lives in Austin and you're not getting a haircut from Lakin and the folks at Rosewood, you're doing it wrong. I don't even care that I'm not being paid because I think they're like one of the best barbers I've ever been to ever. So
yeah, I need to go get my beard shaped up. Fairly new to the beard game, not gonna lie.
Yeah, that's why I haven't heard it, because I'll be like, all off kilter if I do it myself.
Yeah,
so.
I'll look like a Picasso painting if I'm not careful.
With droopy eye and everything. That's weird. I don't know.
Oh yeah, my nose is over on the side. My ears on my forehead. So tonight, Hap, I think we've got a pretty good episode. This is episode 7, right? And so there's 8. This will be the 8th total, including the pilots.
Yeah, man.
And we've got some interesting stuff to talk about. So running through the list really quick. There is a UFO, which is now UAP hearing. So we'll talk a little bit about that. There's a Chinese zoo who's having to prove that their bears are real bears, which I think is pretty funny. We're going to do our revisit, and this is not on purpose. We don't say we're going to talk about Twitter or X or whatever Elon's calling it today. We don't say we're going to full disclosure behind the curtain. We say we don't want to talk about it anymore. But at the end of the day,
somehow,
every 2 weeks, there's some compelling news cycle. And in the past 2 weeks, there's been 2, right? With Twitter and X, if you don't count, the logo in the building being yanked off, flashing everybody, causing seizures, all the stuff. If you don't count that, there were 2. So we'll be talking a little bit about that.
Coming to the country, coming to the world because of the sun.
Oh, this all ties together. Thematically, this is a pretty good one. Voyager 2, the satellite Voyager 2 is apparently still communicating with us. So we're trying to get that thing to turn back around. It's only 12 billion miles away. It's basically amateur numbers. Voyager 1's 15 billion. So 12 billion miles away, and we're like, we'll just send another signal. So this is 1970s technology. It's crazy that it's still going. Yeah. It's crazy that it's talking to us. But Voyager 2 is still alive. We'll talk about that. And one that you added, I think, is going to be very very fascinating, probably a little bit deeper conversation of the ones that we're going to have tonight is the United States headed towards a renter's market? And we'll get more into that. I've got my notes here, but I don't want to throw any details out there. But it's really interesting. And when you say renter's market, you're talking about particularly living facilities, houses, homes, apartments, stuff like that, condos. Is the U.S. headed towards primarily a renter first market? So that's kind of the set of stuff we plan to talk about. as per usual, there will be things we don't plan to talk about, and we may not make it through the list of things we plan to talk about. So that's where we're headed. If you're looking for us on video, like I was saying earlier, we're on YouTube. When we record this, we do it live at 7 o'clock Central over on YouTube. Real Talk, REEL. I just always search for Real Talk with Happa. I leave me out of it. It's way easier to find that way. It's just Real Talk with Happa. And also anywhere you get podcasts, right? If you're watching on video and you're like, I really want to listen to this in the car while I'm driving to work or school or whatever it is, you can get these anywhere you get podcasts. So all the platforms, including Spotify. And did we get video on Spotify? Or are we still just audio only on Spotify? I know you were talking about it.
The only way we're gonna get the video onto Spotify is if I shift the hosting from our current RSS feed and shift it completely over to Spotify, which isn't
Gotcha.
out of reality. That's easy to do. That's just a conversation I think you and I need to have to try to figure out what we want to do. It might be a better platform, to be honest with you. I don't know. But yeah, we'll see.
Does it? Yeah, we'll talk about that. So I mean, you could probably send an email and say your last name is Happa Rogan. They'll probably hook you up. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, me and Joe, we go way back. Like,
yeah, it's the Rogan and Stern podcast.
I'm telling you.
So let's talk about this UFO hearing, and I'm going to cheat tonight. I was crunched for time, so I didn't get to read as much as I wanted to.
Did you watch any of it? Any of the hearings?
I did not. Did you get to watch some? Because you could probably tell me a lot more about it. What I know is there was a hearing where retired Major David Grush gave testimony to the House Oversight Subcommittee in Congress, talking about what is now called UAPs, right? So you'll hear UFOs. That's what people call them traditionally. In this context, they say UAP, which is unidentified aerial phenomena. Again, that's unidentified aerial phenomena. And so the turn on that is that the government, Pentagon, whoever, has been more recently saying, yeah, something was weird in the sky, but we're not even saying it was a thing that was flying in the sky. It could have been lights. Right. It could have been a lot of things. So they're referring to it as an aerial phenomenon. A lot of people still refer to it, of course, as unidentified flying objects and, little green men and stuff. So did you watch some of this? Do you have
I watched quite a bit of it. I've been kind of following a lot of it on and off various platforms and stuff like that. And one of the things that really interests me, and we'll talk about it a little bit down the line, but the responses to the hearing from people in like the National Security Agency and other intel agencies, their responses specifically. So real quick cliff notes on the whole trial is this major said he worked for...
Wait, is it a trial or a hearing?
It's a hearing. Yeah, excuse me.
Okay. No wrongdoing. He's just a hearing.
Right.
Okay.
No.
Gotcha. So it's a bunch of people trying to say, hey, government, look more into it. Give us more information, right? It's just okay.
To backtrack a little bit, in order to get these hearings to occur, there has to be a buildup of a propensity of evidence, and whoever the determining department is that says, yeah, we need to have a hearing, will look at that evidence and say, there actually is substantial evidence and or information here that seems able to be substantiated, and we should hold a hearing. So there's actually a pretty good process. They look through everything. So
you're saying that the legislative branch at some point has said, oh, look, I've got enough evidence that we want to put someone in a room and we want to talk to them and we want to learn more. And in this case, the House Oversight Committee is saying, hey, we're going to learn from these people who are, I mean, look, this is not just some guy. This is retired Major David Grush. Like his job, this person's job included this stuff. So it's not like they just called a bunch of people in there who have, traditionally we've had UFO folk, like people, I've been abducted and stuff, and they've gotten kind of side-eyed, and it's not those folks. This is someone who was paid to by the government, was paid to and tasked with finding this stuff out. He was doing something
in the realm of all this stuff at the time. And to be clear, his position and what he did wasn't exactly fully flushed out. There was a lot of things that he said I can't say on this mic because of national security, but I can tell you in a SCIF, which is a secure room, no in and out transmissions. It's super secret squirrel stuff. They where they could talk about it, in that instance. But I say that because, and we'll get to some of the stuff that he talked about, but the responses to this is there are people that work for the NSA, for instance, that responded to this hearing very weirdly. There is a higher up, I think he was in the NSA. I'd have to double check which acronym he worked for, but he didn't publicly release an official statement, say on the NSA's website or on social media or a letterhead. He posted his statement on LinkedIn, on his personal LinkedIn,
Okay.
which I thought everyone's
That's
like,
odd.
this is very weird. Like, the
Yeah,
only
it's an
thing
odd place to put it.
right, which, whatever. But he basically states that that major had never worked in the department or realm to be around any of this stuff, so he could not know
Oh, so
any of it.
there's a claim that
Right.
that Major David Grush is not even legit.
Correct.
The history that he said is, hey, I worked in this spot. This person
Correct.
on LinkedIn is saying, no, you didn't.
But again, he posted on LinkedIn, so there's nothing officiated. There's nothing like holding. In my opinion, this holds no water. It's just a weird thing to like. I need to say something kind of statement to me. The way it seems, it's just I don't know. It just of all places.
David Grush
LinkedIn,
never worked there, and I am not a lizard person, human.
right? Like I don't know. It's just really weird. But
So what do you so you watched a bunch of this? How was what was the tone? What was the mood? Right, this guy's up here talking, and I assume Republicans and Democrats both,
yeah,
part of the House, and they're like, hey, look, question, statement, question. What was the tone? Was it
Very
antagonistic?
serious?
Was it
No.
Was it okay?
No.
It was okay. All right.
They were very serious. All the questions that were handed to this individual were serious. There really was no joking going on. They asked some very good questions, very, very good questions. One of them being because he talks about how over the course of however many years U.S. has been dealing with this.
Right, because he contends it's been decades long. It's not like a new
Correct.
thing. Right,
So-
he actually says since the 30s, I think is what I read.
Yes. So
Yeah.
where a lot of the sightings and incidences spiked was with the dropping of the nuclear bomb. It coincides almost the same year. Which,
Yeah.
if I was a passerby in the neighborhood of Earth and I saw a nuclear bomb going off, that might pique my interest a little bit.
Or let's say not even a passerby, but let's say an observer.
Sure.
Right? If I was watching ants in an ant farm, I was like, oh, these guys are cute. And
And a
one
little
set
nuclear
off
explosion goes
a
off.
little nuclear explosion, I'd be like, let me get a
Wait a
look.
minute.
Oh, yeah, a little closer. Look at that. Let me go pick up a couple of these ants and take a look at them.
Right.
Right? Like, what are you doing? And
So I mean, it's he talks about that, and then he talks about globally, the U.S. government has gotten a hold of 12 different crashed vehicles. Some of them operable and able to be flown. Some of them
Okay.
not. And
Okay.
one of the key things I picked up on is he talked about globally. So we have gone outside of the U.S.
So your boys, you Men in Black, right? They're off in, I don't know, Colombia somewhere,
yeah,
retrieving some vehicle.
yeah,
And I mean, look, there's probably plenty of spy plane kind of stuff as well,
sure,
and it kind of makes me maybe curious. When I say spy plane, what I mean is, yeah, it's an unidentified flying object. It just happens to be man-made, and it's not from some
Right.
other
Right.
universe, or some other galaxy. But what's interesting to me is let's say you're at the Pentagon. Let's say General Happenfodder, right, is at the Pentagon, and you know everything there is to know about this program. And let's say that, yep, we got a bunch of we got like 7, 8 spacecraft that have landed on our planet, and somehow the United States was able to get every one of them. Or let's say we got 8 and the Russians found 2.
sure.
There is no upside to telling people that. No, like the truth of that. If you're at the Pentagon and you're the person who knows, and you're developing technology off of it, and you understand that, there's literally no upside to the government being honest about that if it's true, which is part of the problem.
Yeah.
This is part of the reason people don't trust them is like the government has no. Why would you say, yeah, sure, we found them? Like, what good comes out of that if you're the government? Now, if you're, and of course, I guess as a citizen, I kind of have to question what good comes out of it for me too, other than just knowing,
Well,
because that's going to rot religion, like religion.
Oh yeah.
That's
For
going to
sure.
rock a lot of religions to the core, right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of science that's going to have to be redone, like today. Our understanding of physics probably changes. Our place in the ecosystem of the universe is absolutely changing.
Sure.
It's interesting, right? What's the upsides?
For me, one of the things that kind of blows me away is you have all these people that have progressively over the decades come out and been like, I've worked with these craft, I've seen these craft, I've seen, as the major refers to them, he refers to, they recovered multiple biologics that were not terrestrial. Non-terrestrial biologics is, I think, the terms that he uses from these wrecks.
That would be
aliens,
space people of some
yes,
sort.
yes, who died.
So
in the
biologics
crash
is the term that they're using for
which
organic.
To be fair,
beings.
biologic is a normal term that professionals use. It's hard to say in a specific context, but like case in point, in the Navy, sonarmen will hear a whale. They don't refer to them as whales. They refer to them as biologics. So it's an animal organism. We don't know exactly what it is. Kind of
it's a biological organism. So what's interesting about that, reading into that, so if that's the contention, what's interesting about that is there's an awful lot of people that say, hey, if there is alien life, why would they come here in person?
Sure.
Why wouldn't they send only machines? And so if you've got a race sufficiently advanced to travel the universe, and they decided, not only am I going to travel, but I'm not sending a drone. Right? It's like we do. You know, a lot of our highest risk military missions now are done by drones. Right? Unmanned aerial vehicles, all these things, for a reason. We don't want the people to die who are capable of doing that stuff.
Sure.
So if the contention is, and let's say it's true, right? Assume it's true for a moment, then some species somewhere else was like, you know what? I'm gonna get in a thing and go over there. I ain't looking through the camera. I ain't watching from afar. I'm gonna drive over there, y'all. I'm gonna drive over there and see what's happening. That's great. That to me is it very interesting.
So in the realm of thinking about why wouldn't they just send unmanned spacecraft to Earth, right? So I don't know if we talked about this on the podcast. I don't think we have, but the military's been testing drones that could be fully autonomous aircraft, strike craft, whatever. Right now, as far as I know, the software is only what's being tested right now. So they test it in simulations and stuff like that. So what they found was when they send these autonomous aircraft out to do various things, they run into a lot of hiccups, like case in point being unable to strike specific targets based off of programming and stuff like that. So what they realized they needed to do was have a chase aircraft at however many hundreds of miles in the back. They could edit commands from a distance. The drones.
So it's more local, but it's not directly in line of fire. Okay, all right.
So then they started putting rules in place to these drones. You can attack these targets, you can't attack these targets. You can attack these aircraft, you can't attack these aircraft. So what the AI recognized was the control aircraft was hindering its mission programming. So what the drone was doing is the very first target that it went after when it would go out on a mission was the command vehicle. Because if it took
this is how the Terminator movies come to be.
Exactly. So that's so this is a very real thought process. So like if you're an alien species, however far away, and you send a drone somewhere, it may not do or operate the way that you want it to. So the best thing that you could possibly do is put somebody in that vehicle and send them, because they've got the programming, but they also have the problem-solving skills and whatever the case may be, and right or wrong thought process, right, to do these things.
I mean, and to a large degree, we're still talking about manned missions to Mars.
Correct.
It'll be womaned mission to Mars, but human beings actually setting foot on Mars is the achievement.
Yes.
Like, we've put our robots there, and it's pretty cool. But what do we want to do? We want to put a person there. Why? Because we can, right? Because we think we can. Because we want to do that. Because we want to try to do that. So, I mean, there's something to be said for biologics hopping in a steel Tylenol and jutting off across the galaxy.
A Tic Tac.
A Tic Tac, an enormous Tic Tac, and going to find Bobby Joe in the field shucking corn.
Sure.
So they can grab him, yank him up in some flying saucer and check him out.
Something I found really funny is one of the legislators that asked the question, because when he talked about the U.S. has 12 crashed vehicles and numerous bodies of biologics and so on and so forth, the legislator was like, so let me get this straight. These beings have the ability to cross billions of light years of space only to get here to Earth and crash.
On land.
Why does this make any sense to you? But my thing is, the major answered it perfectly. He said, in every aspect of any mission, there's a possibility for accidents. Accidents occur. No one is perfect. Nothing is perfect. Even nature isn't perfect. Nature has random aberrations as well. This is something that's going to occur. And he's like, I'm bringing this to your attention because if we have 12 with various bodies in it, how long or how many do you think aren't crashing on the planet?
Yeah, if we have 12, right? So great point. Great point. Let's say we have 12. The United States has 12. How many does China have? That's a lot more landmass. Russia's a lot more landmass. And
how many have they shot down?
And the Earth is 70% covered in water. So we're talking about the ones that hit land, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And we found 12. So is it common, right? This sounds like what he is contending is it's probably far more common.
Yeah.
Than most people would be comfortable hearing, because most people would be uncomfortable hearing it happen once. Like if it happened once, if there were one,
yeah,
it would be societal shattering news.
I mean, if you had a flying vehicle over a major metropolitan area and a news vans happen to be there transmitting live to everyone, people would lose their minds. Like,
oh yeah, oh yeah. I mean, yeah, it would be crazy, right? Like yeah, you'd have a lot of nut jobs show up. So
that's the thing to me is like, because there's a lot of people that are like, well, people aren't really responding like this is a big deal. And I said, well, here's the thing. I think there was a study that said something like 80% of Americans believe that aliens exist or some kind of extraterrestrial exists.
Yep.
And they believe that the government hides all of it. Well,
so where's your head on that? Do you believe there's life not on Earth?
I think it's silly. It would be silly of us to think that there's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I tend to agree with you.
When you look at the mathematical computation that is the universe, the amount of stars, the amount of planets out there that live in that, what do they call that? The I don't remember the exact term.
The Goldilocks zone.
Goldilocks zone.
Yep.
Like, I think it would be silly for us to not believe that there's something out there. Right.
It's Fermi's paradox, right? Like if anyone listening wants to look it up, Fermi's paradox is one of the most interesting reads. It's a bunch of mathematicians sat around and tried to explain or prove or disprove life outside of Earth using math.
Right.
And mathematically speaking, the inevitability is there's life not on Earth.
Yeah.
Mathematically speaking. Right now, that's a big leap to say there's life not on Earth. And then there's life not on Earth which has visited Earth. Right? There's a lot of leaps you got to get to in there. So if we were to find that there's life not on Earth that has visited Earth, what I will tell you is we're the noisy neighbor no one wants to be around.
Yeah. Are we the neighborhood that you lock your door?
Right. Chances are we're being avoided. So imagine this happen. Let me ask you this question about this, because I love this subject. This is one of my favorite. I could talk about this the whole time we're talking tonight. But let's say you're a dude, and you're cruising down the road one night. You're and your puppy driving down the road, just the two of you, in Nowheresville, Nebraska. Okay. You're on your way back home or whatever, on your way nowhere. All of a sudden, you find yourself abducted by aliens for a period of time which you can't identify. Now, you're unharmed, but you end up right back in your truck with your puppy, and you go about your way.
Yeah.
The people who say that has happened to them have been treated. The way they've been treated has not been kind in general.
Yeah.
So, what incentive does someone have to say that and make that story up if the attention they get is so overwhelmingly negative as a result of having done it? And the question is, let's say that happened to you. Would you be someone that'd be on the news being like, dude, look, I don't know what to tell you, but this happened to me? Or would you be someone that's like, I ain't gonna tell nobody about that because I don't want to deal with it?
More concerned with the implications to my health at that point, to be honest with you.
So you'd be like hitting up a doctor?
Like worried that I'm going to have some crazy cancer or something, right? Because, I mean, you ever seen that movie Fire in the Sky?
No, I have not. No.
So that movie is supposed to be about some folks up in the Pacific Northwest that went fishing or something like that. It's been a minute since I've seen the movie, so forgive me if I misquote the movie, but one of them or they all get abducted, but only one of them starts remembering. And they all got returned except for this one guy. This one guy didn't get returned for a few days. And then he starts having flashes and stuff of the experience. And none of it is pleasant. Like, it's all pain and horror and bad things. So that to me is, if somebody has the ability to cross the universe to come here and they're doing experiments, you're not stopping them.
Well, So let's talk about that, right? Like, so anything that has that capability is sufficiently advanced enough that we don't matter to it.
We won't even understand what they're doing.
Right. We are termites.
Yeah.
In comparison. And so if they show up, if a crew shows up, we are absolutely at their mercy.
For sure.
Because our most powerful weapons, nuclear, would be ineffective because the requirements of traveling here would have been tougher than whatever weapons of mass destruction we could use. We would only irradiate our planet.
Yep.
And they wouldn't care.
Yep.
So it would be really hard to differentiate between humans and cows. You know, to the South Park episode, right? Like, the aliens are like, the cows are who run it, right? The cows are y'all bringing cows food, like the cows don't do nothing all day, like y'all just serving cows, right? Like there's something to be said if there was, you know, species out there, which I believe there has to be life somewhere other than here, just mathematically speaking, and that life has advanced sufficiently enough to have the technology and the fuel and the resources required to make an interstellar trip and be so accurate that they land on our planet. Our best bet is do whatever they say.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, this is an idea that's so far out of the average person's ability to formulate a thought that I don't know that you'd even have a response to what you would do. Like, you just wouldn't. There's a good chance, and you and I have talked about this before, we may not be the smartest beings on the planet. There's a good chance that, like, an octopus is smarter than us or something like that. You know what I mean?
Probably, like, I know a lot of people. There's algae in the sea that's smarter than a lot of them.
That's a fair statement.
So
I'm going to believe that you believe that there's aliens then? I didn't mean to go on so long about this topic.
No, I completely believe that, you know, mathematically speaking, there's almost a 0% chance. It's not absolute zero.
Right.
But there's a 0% chance that life has only ever existed on Earth. Yes. And what's interesting is when you get into it is the timing of it, right? Because one of the things is maybe life existed 100,000, 200,000, 500,000 years ago somewhere else. And maybe life is popping up all over the universe.
Yeah.
It's just not at the exact same moment. And not at the exact same moment, not in the exact same locations, right? Because to communicate with other life, you know, it's like we're talking about the speed of light here.
Yeah.
We don't have anything we've invented that's that fast. Light travels at the speed of light. Nothing else. that we've invented.
Yeah.
So our next best bet is radio signals, right? And so we've been doing the whole, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial. Like if you ever remember the screensavers that were contributing to the computing network for SETI to go and like process files. But if you ever get a chance, go on the internet and look at the ring, because what we've been doing is sending out radio signals, right? Trying to say, if you're out there, say something to us. Hello, 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 hello. We're sticking our head out the window of our house and just yelling.
Right.
But if you go look at Earth, and you look at the entirety of existence since we've been able to do that, how far those waves have gotten, it's tiny.
Yeah.
Right? It's tiny. Space is so incomprehensibly big, and there is so incomprehensibly much going on in it. There's you asked me the question, do I believe there's life out there? 100% I believe there's life out there. It would be the definition of human hubris.
Sure.
To say we are the only thing that ever made it this far. We are not that good. We are pink, we are squishy on the inside. And on the whole, we're pretty dumb.
Yeah. I would totally agree with that. All that. I just think it's interesting that we're at a point now where, like you said, the government still is not going to acknowledge straight up that they have alien craft, but at the same time, they're also not denying that they have said aircraft. And then you have people that have worked in the industry, whether that be, in Area 51 or whatever, reverse engineering a lot of this tech and or working for organizations that do a lot of this research and stuff like that. Like that. Yeah. So it's weird to me that we would think for a moment, or there are people out there that would think for a moment that that's not a thing,
Well, you almost have to invent reasons not to believe it, right? You almost have to sit down and say, I refuse to believe it because I refuse to believe it, right? When you talk about science, math, whatever else, it's pretty much an inevitability that there's something out there. So to me, I think, I can actually see right now how easy it would be to become one of those podcasts that just talks about this stuff. Because we are now 40 minutes in to this one subject, and could talk a lot more about it. It's really fascinating. Yeah. I'd like to take caller on line 3, that kind of stuff. So I'm going to move us. I'm going to move us.
A multiple episode topic for sure.
Oh, we're going to come back to this one. I think we need to both probably keep an eye on this particular story. I think we're going to talk a little bit about Voyager here in a minute too. In fact, why don't we just segue right into that? So let's talk about Voyager, right? So
sure.
So Voyager 2, I think segues well because it's 12 billion miles away from home.
Billion with a B.
And with a B, billion like bullion, except further.
Bullion.
And 12 billion miles the thing has traveled since like 1973, 1970, whenever it was launched. It was in the 70s. Yeah. And the people who were sending signals back and forth to it, they made it oopsie. And they sent it a command that tilted its antenna 2 degrees away from Earth, which when you're 12 billion miles away, 2 degrees means you're missing by quite a bit. And they thought, oh, well, it's done. We screwed up. And now this piece of 1970s technology that's probably got like Flintstone-style feet pushing it through space is now tumbling outside of the sun's influence, and we'll never hear from it again. But the thing swirled around and sent a message back. And so the team at NASA was like, oh, still alive. All right. They sent a message to tell it to adjust its antenna. And they said it's very unlikely that is going to get to Voyager 2. But in October, it resets itself automatically. If it doesn't get any messages, it resets itself automatically. So really the story, I think, is twofold. Voyager 1 is 15 billion miles away, right? So it's the furthest thing we've ever sent in the universe. If you've ever seen the records, the gold records, like that they put, like that's what that's for. Voyager is what's carrying that. So if anyone ever finds it, it's going to have, like, here's our basic understanding of mathematics.
Sure hope they have a record player.
Think we are in the universe. Everyone knows a phonograph is the first thing every society invents.
That's the very first, the crank one, though.
Oh yeah, with the big horn.
Yeah.
That one. That was a pretty good impression of a phonograph.
That was good. That was good.
Yeah.
Anyway,
and so Voyager 1 is 15 billion miles away and still working fine, and has left the sun's influence altogether. Voyager 2 headed in a little bit different direction, 12 billion miles away. Hope to have it back talking to us in October. But the interesting thing is, man, I just told you a number that is staggering, 12 billion. That ain't that far in space.
No.
12 billion miles. And in the context of the universe, that's not very far. That's like next door.
I mean, so how far edge of our how far is it to the edge of our solar system?
I think it was like, well, let's check that. The edge of the solar system would be
100,000 AU. Okay, so actually 133,000 AU is what Voyager 2 is at right now. So it is 33 AU outside of our solar system. And it took it, so 1977 is when it was launched, right? So you're talking almost 50 years. Is my math right, or am I mathing wrong? No, that's almost 50 years. Almost.
almost 50. You're all right.
Mathing's hard,
You're
man.
still good.
Mathing's hard. To me, let me just say the fact that, speaking of math, the only reason this thing is working still and able to orient and communicate with Earth is because there are people that are far better at math than myself.
I mean, think about that. Yeah, that's not a bad point. 1977, so let's say
They weren't using
1974.
computers. They were using slide rules.
1973, a man, it's a chalkboard, right? And
Yes.
and in 2023, it's going to be
Oh
right
my
here.
gosh. Could you
And
imagine
it'll be communicated. Dude.
trying to get
And,
an engineer to do this today on a
No.
chalkboard
And,
and slide rule?
Have you ever seen what it required to get Voyager outside of our solar system? Because people think you launch it straight and it goes in a straight line. That's just how the human brain works.
Yeah, not so much.
It doesn't do that, right? It
Yeah.
goes between planets and uses the gravitational pull of the planet to fire its
Yep.
to slingshot itself around.
Slingshot repeatedly, right?
Unbelievable what was required to make this occur in the 1970s. And so
And
right back to
the flight path. If you ever look at a video of the flight path, it's like from us to this planet loop, that planet loop, that planet loop, and it just continuously does
absolutely.
this until it leaves.
Yeah.
Right.
it's unbelievable what was required to make those things work. And it really makes you sit down and think, okay, they designed these, they launched them in 77. Sure. They designed them in late 60s, right? They constructed them. All the work that went into them was that sort of time frame. So
Yeah.
did people just wake up one day and think, I'm a lot smarter now. We're going to go to the moon. I'm going to put something a billion miles away. And if the answer is yes, people woke up and did that, and they didn't do it by thinking, oh my God, some visitors from somewhere else landed and we learned something. Why are we having such a hard time doing some of that stuff today?
Idiocracy is reality.
Are we going backwards, Appa?
We're
Is that what I'm
getting
hearing?
stupider. We are getting stupider, for sure.
You believe humanity on a whole is somehow
We're getting dumber. I mean, I don't think I'm wrong. I think as a society, I shouldn't say as a society. I think Americans are getting stupider, logistically and engineering-wise and mathematically. But there are other nations that are, if they haven't already, I'm sure they have, surpassed us.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
Speaking of getting
isn't India getting ready to launch a moon lander?
Oh yeah, there's several countries. We had some significant brain drain from NASA a couple of administrations ago,
Yeah.
and we've talked about that previously on the podcast. And if anyone really wants to get me triggered, that's a great place to start.
Yeah.
So we've had that, and yeah, some other countries are really amping up. The United States made its bones in the space race. Right, we're the most technologically advanced society in the history of humanity.
Yeah.
Right, and to a large degree, it's because we're going to have these huge goals, and a lot of people are going to move here and be really smart about it, and then we're going to perpetrate that. I live not too far from Huntsville, Alabama, and you can go up there and see. Same thing in Houston, right? You can go up there, you can go and see Cape Canaveral. You can go look at where the United States government brought in just as many of the smartest human beings on Earth at that time and said, get smarter, get smarter, get smarter, do big stuff, do big stuff, do big stuff. And they did. And we went to the moon, and we sent things 15 billion miles away, and then we sent it the wrong command. right? Because that's how humans do.
How bad do you feel as that guy right now?
Oh my God. It was like the guy, I forget what satellite it was, but there was a like if someone didn't convert metric to imperial correctly and they shot the satellite into the sun.
Yep.
Like that person spent their whole life trying to get that job and then was like, I had one job.
That's
man.
TikTok right there.
Yeah. Speaking of getting dumber, right? So Elon Musk is
there's your segue.
well, social media, right? Like one of the things I think that's contributing to the overall dumbing down of society is social media. It's not social media by nature of just it existing, because when it first started, it was pictures of people's pets, lunch, and some connections, right? It has turned into a hyper addictive usage of technology. So the companies that do it, we've talked about this in the podcast before, the companies that do social media stuff do it to make money, because that's how companies work. How do they make money? They make money by making you stare at your phone all the time. Why? So they can show you more ads, because they make money based on how many ads they show you. So their whole incentive is to get people to stare at devices all the time. And there's a lot of research going on right now into the dumbing down of society as a result of social media. Well, some of that research, Hapa, was the Center for Countering Hate. All right, so it's a nonprofit group. They operate out of the UK and the United States of America, and they do research in social media. And what they do is they track hate speech, and they don't track it individual. They don't go after someone and be like, you put something that was hate speech up there, we're going after you. No, they look at platforms and they say, hey, look, on the whole, is this platform friendly to hate speech or unfriendly to hate speech?
Right.
And that's really what they report on TikTok, Facebook. They do this research all the time. Like I think they release like quarterly reports. Anyway, they released a report, and they said that since Elon Musk took over Twitter, that hate speech has increased by some percentage.
Sure.
That's not a secret. It absolutely did. Like Elon Musk claims to be a free speech absolutist. Sure. Until you say Elon Musk is fat.
Right.
And then you're banned and sued, and your house gets burned down randomly. He goes really hard to paint for certain things. So he's not really a free speech absolutist, right? He is. Right. He's very choosy about it, and he threatened to sue. He's threatening to sue this research group because they said, "Hey, we found that hate speech increased on Twitter. Well, I'm going to sue you." That is so against what that's supposed to be about. If Elon Musk comes in and says, hey, look, I'm going to run Twitter and I'm going to be about free speech and I'm going to let everybody have free speech, that's one thing. Yeah. But you're threatening to sue nonprofits, man. Yeah. So, yeah,
which is a pretty dirty thing. I don't care what anybody says.
Yeah, it's just you and I talked a lot about Elon Musk, and it's fun. It's a fun conversation for me because I think it's something we have different viewpoints on. And and the guy was so close to being a superhero, that he kind of delves off into supervillain at times, in my opinion. And then when you're going after a nonprofit that is literally just saying, we think there should be less hate speech online.
Yeah. Yeah, like, for real. Yeah.
As a father of two teenagers, I would love it if people stopped calling them fat.
Yeah. Right.
I would love it if they stopped being mean online. That would be kind of cool.
Sure.
And so going after people like that, there's that, and there's another piece I wanted to talk about, which is Elon Musk's tweet saying, if you have been fired or harassed as a result of your posts on this platform, I will fund your lawsuits. No limit. And obviously this is Elon Musk being high. Yeah. Because the first people to respond were his employees that were fired. Oh. Specifically for posting on the platform. Oof. And I find it just very interesting. I find the Elon Musk saga interesting because I really do think that we are watching the richest man in the history of the planet become the not richest man in the history of the planet. Right? That is already happening. He's already lost so much value that people are passing him. And I think he's just doubling down. So the last thing with that is the Elon Musk and Zuckerberg fight. I don't know if you've seen this. This is as of, I think, yesterday. Elon Musk said, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do it. I had an MRI. I'm not really there. Just not feeling it. And of course,
not really
Zuckerberg
there.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not feeling good.
I got a minor cough.
I have to have surgery. Oh, so sick. And Zuckerberg was like, dude, I'll do it like now. Yeah. So Zuckerberg's like double, 5'8" Zuckerberg's like, dude, I'll go now. And so the saga of Elon Musk continues. The saga of Twitter continues. The saga of X continues.
I think the funniest thing about this whole thing is, and it's not going to be a popular opinion, but I still like that he bought Twitter.
Yeah.
And I like that he pulled a lot of the pins off of the idea that the government can say what you can and can't say. And I like the idea of the freedom of speech. It's bullshit that you can't say anything horrible about him on the platform. If that's, I don't know. I haven't seen any cases where he's done that. I haven't read into it. I don't admittedly don't know a lot of the evidence there. The problem I have in general, and I'm not saying I'm an advocate for hate speech, but I have to preface it with that because that's how it's going to sound, right? The thing is we as humans have free will. So if somebody says something we don't like, in theory, we should have the free will to just not consume said media.
Yeah.
Period.
Yep.
But going back to the sentence you had mentioned, because you have children that might have comments to them that hits harder in a more emotional way because of the way social media is, I think it is very important for us as a society to recognize that we also just need to do better overall.
So you're saying be a better human? Is that what I'm hearing you say?
100%. So
yeah,
if I
remember...
look at somebody's Twitter handle or bio or whatever, and it says stuff like, I don't know, anything inflammatory politically or anything, I'm already like, all right, whatever this person says is dribble. It means nothing to me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You're right.
And,
let's acknowledge for a moment that you're an intelligent adult. So a lot of people using social media, in fact, most of them are bots, but take the bots out of it.
Sure.
Many of them are unintelligent adults who are unable to process and be critical with their thinking, right? Which is what you just described.
Right.
Oh, I'm going to discount this person because I kind of see how they are, and
Yeah.
It doesn't offend me, right? I'm not going to lose my mind over it. And I honestly think they should have the right to say whatever they want to say. I have the right to ignore it. That has been like a long human history of that's how you handle that. And the real problem to me does come in the form of kids bullying kids, or adults even worse bullying kids and stuff like that. We have some pretty good, I think I kind of like the anti-bullying stuff that we've done over the past, say, 20 years here in the States, where we have these laws and in a lot of ways, other countries are ahead of us on that. But bullying is just bad. Is kind of where you're going with it. Like, don't be a jerk. It's just bad to be a jerk. Social media happens to be a vehicle that people are using for it nowadays, but certainly not new, right? Social media,
it's just
like being a jerk is not
scale
new
as a result of social media, right?
Yeah.
Because that douchebag is able to propagate that to a bigger crowd now versus a 5 or 6 people that they may see in public, right?
Yep. Or heaven forbid, find 1,000 people that think the way they do.
Oh God. Well, douchebaggery tends to flock to other douchebaggery.
Are you suggesting that douchebags are migratory?
I'm just saying. But so, and we haven't talked about this, and this is gonna be something I've been actually meaning to ask you about it because, in my opinion, the thought process that you and I have also is similar. But my thing is how our little humans progress through this world is going to reflect a lot how we as the grown-up humans are reacting in the world, right? Like, so I hate to say it, but I'm pretty positive that if somebody's a bully, it's because they see that in their parents in some aspect of life.
Some role model.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's why I say, like, we just have to do better. We have to do better as a society. Like, you shouldn't be, just treat each other with respect, as respect of another human being. Like, you should be doing that already anyway. And if you think for one moment you shouldn't be doing that, well, you should probably take a step back and just stop talking. Just stop talking. Just stop. Stop. Just stop. Actually, that's a good term. Just stop. Like,
Right, you don't
whatever
have
it
to
is,
speak.
stop.
Right, you don't have to. You don't have to tweet. You know, I've had this viewpoint for a long time, and this goes back to, I don't know, 2007 or 8. So call it that time, right? Where I was watching social media change. And when it first started, you know, Facebook was one of the most amazing things in the world. You could keep up with people all over the place.
Yeah.
I still keep up with classmates, right? I'm never gonna have a lot of room in my life for
Right.
them to be a relationship, but I still care what happens to them, right? And so, you know, you get to see that sort of stuff. Twitter was one of the most unbelievable places to meet people with common interests and just go back and forth in a very kind of informal way. You know, I dealt with a lot of musicians that I thought a lot about. We had back and forths on Twitter. We never had that opportunity. And then when I meet them in, you know,
Right.
real life, it's like, oh, hey, I know you, right? And you never get that opportunity outside of that, right? So there's magic, right? Social media was
Yeah.
originally just like this magic, and there was this amazing stuff, and then it kind of got weird, and it turned into, you know, a much more gnarly thing. The thing is, the magic still exists,
Yeah.
and we tend to talk about it only in negatives, and I don't think that's fair necessarily, right? Because you can still keep up with classmates, you can still, like, all the magic is still there. We just have a lot of people being jerks who are ruining it, you know, for everyone else. And I do
Yeah.
think the kids thing, right? The kids thing is one that gets me. Now, my kids were prepared for how that works because, you know, the industry I'm in, you know what I do. Like, my
Yeah.
kids from the ground up, before they could use social media, they were going to be prepared to handle social media. And we've had to work through, oh, this is how bullying, yeah, you're right. That's how this works. And that's how that goes. And, you know, kids' social groups used to be 20 or 30 people maximum is who they went to school
Yeah.
with, kind of.
Yeah.
And it was kind of their social group. And they became, you know, kids are very easy to be affected, right? And they kind of mimic what they see around them.
Yeah.
And with social media, they can glam onto some really wonky stuff.
Yeah.
And I do feel like, you know, people just need to be better on the whole. And social media is a vehicle for both, you know, good and bad. And it's not fair. I always talk about it in the bad light, but there's
Yeah,
plenty
for
of
sure.
good, plenty of good to be had on social media. And I do wonder, as time goes on, I've had this thought, and this is the one I had back in like 2007, 8, 9, whatever it was. At some point, archaeologists who are trying to discover the history of
Yeah.
humanity, at some point, they're going to be digging through digital archives. You know, right now, you picture them in some jungle. Oh my God, there were humans here, and there was a village here, and there was a whatever, and they've got their brushes, and they're uncovering stuff. That's today's archaeology.
Yeah.
There's a future state where archaeology is, let me see what people were like in 2023 by looking at their digital footprint in 2023.
Right.
That's a real thing. They'll have your search
Yeah.
history,
Yeah.
right? It ain't going away. So whatever you search for on Google's there. They'll have all your ad information,
Yeah.
and they'll have your social media stuff. And the only thing that you're actually in control of there is your social media stuff. So if someone was going to dig up, you know, Happopotter, and you go to, if you've ever been to the Smithsonian Museum, they've got like the Neanderthals, right? And
Yeah.
they chose one example to be like the example of Neanderthals.
Yeah.
So that could have been just like, hey, 7's the Neanderthal we're choosing. So if like in some museum in 150,000 years, what if they chose you as the example?
Oh,
And it was
man.
like, and you're looking at the tweets and it's like, oh yeah, the society was full of hate and vitriol.
But
All
that's
time,
the
it's all they
scary
did.
thing, right? That's
No
the scary
wonder they
thing
killed
is,
these. No wonder the cities blew up.
like, they're gonna look at this say 1,000 years from now, they're gonna look at the growth in history. Like, let's just roll it back to 0 and go from there, and you're gonna see this exponential increase in knowledge and in awareness and everything. And then what? Do we just flatline for the last 50, 100, 500 years of whatever they see? Like, is this gonna be considered the dark ages of the modern era? Is that what we're looking at? Are we in the dark age right now? That
You know,
might-
it's possible if you want to
crazy.
look at the long arc of human discovery. We have access to more information than we've ever had access to, and a complete inability to process it.
100%. Think about
you know,
now. I thought about this today actually. going to the barber shop. I know how to get to my barber shop, but the first thing I do when I get in my truck, pop open the GPS and throw it up in my truck.
Yeah.
So it's like, because I remember as a kid riding my bike all over Portland to various places.
Sure.
And my dad knowing where this restaurant was or this store is or whatever. But can people do that nowadays? They can't do that.
My dad still refers to places by what county they're in.
Yeah. Can they do
county
that
lines?
No.
Who even thinks about county lines nowadays?
Nobody.
They're basically irrelevant to how we get places. But he'll tell you, oh no, that's over in Walker County.
Oh man.
What do you mean it's in Walker County? I mean, look, if I knew more about counties, because he's my dad, I had to learn, right? But if you don't know anything about counties, it's like, what does that mean? Walker County. It's west, okay? It's west.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Where's west?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Ordinal directions. Really? What? Is that up? It's up in the video game. Yeah, no, it's fascinating to watch. I was a friend of mine was doing a TED Talk, and I was lucky enough to go with her when she did this TED Talk, and her TED Talk was about the addictive nature of not just social media but software in general. So there's an awful lot of software out there, games like video games or some of them. They want you to spend as much time as possible using their software, and that's how they make money off of you. Is they keep you engaged, right? And they have. You've seen this. I've seen this. They have engagement statistics. How long did someone get in? How many times did they do the thing we wanted them to do? Did they scroll? Did they play 50 matches or 10 matches? That matters to us. And how do we get the people who played 10 matches to play 12? And very few companies are being responsible with that. In fact, the guy I was talking to backstage at this TED Talk who had finished his talk, we got to talking about the ethics and technology debate. Because technology has none.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really fascinating thing to think about. There's no ethics board. There's no ethics accountability in technology. Back to a thing we talked about, it's because the government is so far behind. They don't know how to apply ethics to technology. And technology, the companies that run it, obviously cannot be trusted to do so in a way that's just generally the best way for society. They're going to do it the way that's best for shareholders, best for people who want money.
Because you're going to keep trying to maintain that, right? Like,
it's what they do. It's what companies are designed to do.
Yeah.
So I do think. You said, "Are we?"
That's a good topic right there.
Oh yeah, we should do that. When you said, "Are we in the dark ages?" I think we might be. I think we think we're in the information age, but we're going to look back and we're going to say there will be a point where humans have evolved to where they can consume this amount of information. That will happen.
We're in the information age, but nobody knows any of the information.
We are like number 3 on the evolution chart right now, right? Compared to where humans could be.
Yeah.
And part of it is, they discovered how to mine information, right? Just like we discovered metal, or the Bronze Age, or whatever else. They discovered how to mine information. They had no idea how to use it.
Yeah.
We're just walking around dirt, right? So yeah, no, I think that'll be really interesting. If either of us are blessed with eternal life, or if you're a vampire, you might be. I don't know, but I encourage you to keep an eye on it and let me know in 1,000 years.
I mean, that is oh my God, that opens a whole nother can of worms, because it really does roll back to the conversation that we just had about sending the wrong signal to a satellite that was programmed in '77 that oriented its communication dish incorrectly 2 degrees, which probably sent a signal to some random God knows place.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Somewhere out there, Zerbrink was getting a new message from Voyager.
Hence the 12 crashed saucers on the planet.
Yeah, they're like, we keep getting these messages from Voyager, and the little disc on it gave us a location, and our ships keep crashing.
And we ran into it because our math was wrong.
The GPS on your vinyl record that you sent up was bad, dude. It said take a left.
We needed to do it in meters, not yards, and we didn't know that.
We took a left, and it was in some place called Nevada.
Seven and I literally didn't have any way to intertwine all these topics, and somehow here we are.
It works. It's the whiskey. I blame the liquor.
100%. But I mean, I think you and I are onto something. Then when I mentioned that, are we in the dark ages right now? Because I kind of feel like we are now, because you have nobody inventing like Roman cement, quick dry cement, or aqueducts, or any of those things are not being like engineered or thought of in a large scale. All of it is maybe one guy who took the time to go to engineering school or whatever. You know what I mean? Like case in point, and this is going to be a subject I intend to add for the next podcast. There was a new material that was just produced that is a superconductor that is hyperconductive at room temperature.
That's crazy. So it doesn't have to be cooled with liquid
Nope.
nitrogen, which is what historically that's what they have to do, right? So they've got it at room. Yeah, we need to talk about that.
But it takes, to create a certain amount of this, it just takes time is all it is. And so the guy that created this stuff, you know, is this reverse engineered stuff? I don't know, because if you do a lot of, you know, watching of like, you know, we joke about Joe Rogan all the time and some of the look, if you're
Uncle
gonna
Joe.
have a podcast and you're gonna aspire to someone, Joe is it, right? Because he's
pretty good at it.
He is the guy. Like, that's the person you should be emulating. But the conversations that he's had around aliens and Area 51 and some of the people he's had on, they've talked about reverse engineering a lot of these power sources and stuff like that there's elements that we didn't know existed that were reverse engineering. And who knows? Maybe this is one of those things. One of those random things that we're coming across, right? But anyway, I just it does blow me away when you think about it in the aspect of, you know, back in the day when Tiberius was talking to Anzo there in Rome, right?
Anzo, man. Anzo's a good guy.
That guy's a joker.
Tell you.
Were they like, hey Tiberius, are we in the Dark Ages right now? Like, we aren't inventing anything really spectacular while they're in their
No, they were.
cities, or...
I would bet. Well, I would bet you, right, that you're talking about Rome, and I think that's a good one to talk about. That was the height of society.
Right. But
How
they were
could
using
it get
lead
higher?
for pipes.
Absolutely. We look back now, and it was like, nah, you guys were not there, and so it's inevitable that in 1,000 years, right? We're not even talking about 1,000 years there, but in 1,000 years, you know, 1,500, 2,000 years, humanity will look back at humanity now and be like, man, they didn't.
Those guys are idiots. That was the Dark Ages.
Yeah,
Jesus.
those guys didn't know anything. Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah. So you know, let's move on. I got two more subjects I want to hit. We're doing good on time. I will say that this is going to be an interesting one. That's kind of going to be segueing off of a rant, which is what we just kind of had.
Yeah, pretty
And there's news right out that Wells Fargo is adjusting how they approach their mortgage lending. And so I'll read the kind of takeaways. It's the third largest mortgage lender, and they're stepping back from the mortgage market, not exiting it, but they're changing their strategy significantly, which matches Bank of America and JP Morgan Chase, right? It matches some of what's been going on there. So this is like the third of the top five banks to do this step. And since they're not exiting, they're going to be focusing only on mortgages to existing customers and those in minority communities. So there's a large swath of human beings that are not going to be able to get mortgages through Wells Fargo.
Through them.
And through them. And you know, you got Bank of America, JP Morgan Chase, and they're focusing on investment banking and unsecured lending, which unsecured lending, for anyone who doesn't know a lot about lending, that's credit cards. So unsecured means you've gotten a loan and you didn't give anybody anything for the loan. So a car, as an example, I get a car loan, that's a secured loan. It's secured because the bank can come take your car away. Credit card, it doesn't do that, right? So unsecured lending traditionally is a higher risk, you know, spot, right? And so it's an interesting state of affairs to see banks saying, by the way, JP Morgan Chase, Bank of America made these decisions after 2008 crash. So they made their decisions with a kind of a really strong economic driver, just saying make some different decisions. So Wells Fargo is the outlier because they're making it now. And probably the interesting thing, I'll stop and let you talk about what your thoughts are on it, but is that mortgage interest rates have gone from like 3%, you know, some years back. It's 7%. It's hovering around that. That's hundreds of dollars a month on a mortgage. So already mortgages are becoming hard to get simply because they're so expensive. And now you have a third of the top 5 lenders in the space saying, we're just not going to do it at all. And so the question is, right, is the United States getting out of the real estate ownership business for citizens?
Well, I think the thing that scares me is the idea of the American dream is, I don't want to say dying because I don't want to be an alarmist. I don't want to be one of those people that for like 5 decades is screaming how something's ending, because that's, you know what I mean? Because people have said the American dream was dying in the 80s, and they said it in the 90s, so on and so forth. I'm not trying to say that, but this is a huge indicator of how financial institutions are shifting what they are willing to invest in, right?
Sure.
Corporations and companies, whether based out of the U.S. or not, and there are a lot that aren't based in the U.S., are buying real estate in droves and
Sure.
then never selling that. They're setting them up as rentals because they recognize that they can get far more money for a property if they just rent it versus buying and selling, just constantly doing that. Where this is scary in the case of Wells Fargo is because Wells Fargo's volume of mortgages versus a lot of its competitors, its volume per se, not necessarily the capita value, but its volume of mortgages, I think it's like double the next competitor, the amount of mortgages that they do on a regular basis. So for them to just straight up say, we're not going to do mortgages anymore, we're going to deal with rental stuff. So essentially what they're saying is they're going to buy property and start setting up rentals now because they can make more money that way. This is scary. This is scary because
it is. And I thought of something while you were saying that. So I was working in finance through the 2008. And you and I have talked about that. Probably we never talked about it on the podcast, but
Sure.
I have some viewpoints there. And during that time, and I don't know, maybe this is a good conversation because I would be curious how much you remember of this, because to me it was so much a part of my life, right? I was sleeping, waking up, eating, breathing, this stuff. And during that time, there was an administration change that occurred, right? And there was the Bush administration, the W. Bush administration to the Obama administration.
Sure.
And through that whole thing, what happened was the bailout, right? Everybody knows about the bailout.
Yep.
But I don't know how many people remember how much consolidation occurred there.
Oh,
And what I mean by consolidation was the big banks got much larger. And the small players were gone, right? They let them fail. And so while the government was willing to, and the government, like, they couldn't bail out everybody.
Yeah.
Right? That's not a real thing that could have occurred.
Yeah.
And so what they chose to do, they chose to bail out some, and people can argue whether that was the right decision or wrong decision, whatever. I'm not arguing that, but they did choose. They're like, well, we're going to bail somebody out. We can't bail out everybody. They let a lot of mid-tier banks and small banks
just collapse.
die.
Yeah.
And what they did with those accounts is they put them in Wells Fargo. They put them in Bank of America, right? Those top 10 banks that were talking to Timothy Geithner at the time, right? Who was Obama? He was part of the Obama administration.
Right.
Those top 10 banks got consolidation benefits through government default, right? So these banks defaulted. And so now we've got all these banks that just got bigger. So all that lending went in one spot. And now those banks have so much more power. It's a consolidation of power and a consolidation of money. If they're deciding to exit a market, it's notable, right?
Yeah.
There's not as many mid-tier banks. There's not as many regional banks. They call them regional banks, right? There's not as many regional banks to take that slack up. Now, I will say that's my death and gloom and doom and gloom stuff. But on the other side of it, there's probably a lot of opportunity for smaller players if you're going to exit the mortgage game.
To start stepping up.
Yeah.
Sure.
And there's probably smart money investing in that, right? You starting a bank, right? I've known a few people who started banks.
Right.
And what I will say is it requires capital.
Yeah.
Now the question is, where's the capital come from?
Right.
And you are back to what you were talking about, is the capital comes from foreign funding. Because who owns I don't own my house. Do you own your house?
No.
The bank owns your house.
Yes.
Right. So that's a secured loan. That's the whole
Right.
point of a
Right.
secured loan.
Right.
So yeah, that's an alarming trend to see. Um, as hard as it is to buy a house anyway, interest rates make it difficult because of price. It's hard to find one. The housing market, the prices on houses are insane. My house,
Nuts.
I couldn't buy my house now.
Yeah.
Right, I live in it.
Yeah.
Right, it's great to have. But if I sold it, I couldn't buy the one next door.
Yeah, for sure.
Right, so making it harder and harder and harder and harder and harder and harder and harder for people to get a home.
Yeah.
Should be really concerning to a lot of people. Now, I'm in
Yeah.
a place of privilege, right? I have a home, and I bought when the buy-in was good.
Yeah.
But man, if I was say I just graduated college, or say I was 2 years out of college and I'd started my career, and I was 2 years into my career, and I just got my first promotion, my first raise, and I'm looking at house time, I don't want to be a renter anymore. I'm probably a renter forever.
Yeah. I mean, I bought this house, I was 40. So that's not, I hitting the quote unquote American dream at middle age, I feel like is not exactly
You feel like 40 was, while you got the American dream, you feel like 40 was a little bit later than you
little
planned?
little late, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
And,
all right,
and
yeah.
not necessarily to anything in the financial marketplace or anything. I had a lot of blunders in my own life that kind of put me there, but you know, you look at our parents who may have bought houses or our grandparents,
Yeah,
right? That
yeah.
bought houses in the 50s.
Yep.
That you had these greatest generation folks that might have been overseas doing the government's bidding or the world's bidding to knock down tyranny, and came back and just had stacks of cash back then, however much
Yep.
stack of cash.
Yeah, it was $25, right? A house was $25.
Right. And
Yeah.
and they were able to do this. Or even my dad, you know, he bought a house in Portland, Oregon in 1979. He paid $54,000 for it. A car costs $54,000 today. Like,
I mean, yeah, a not expensive car.
yes. So that to me is a little mind-boggling, especially when you consider the disparity in property value. Say, I can't really talk here now because this is like little California. I'll say maybe where you live versus say
Yep.
Southern California, because that
Yep.
you got people that bought houses in say 99, 2000, excuse me, for even 200 grand, who sold them for 1.2 million.
Yep. Yep.
And then came here to Texas or out to you or out to Montana or whatever, who paid cash for whatever house that has 5 times the property, and they
Oh, yeah.
ended up
No,
still with a
absolutely.
million. You know, that I don't know. To me, it's pretty. Financing at that level is, if you're scared to jump into the deep end to get a piece of property financed, and you are ashamed of the fact that you're scared, you shouldn't be ashamed. Like,
No, I would be scared.
It
As a guy
is-
that's owned a home for over 20 years, I'll tell you, I'd be scared.
Holy crap. I mean, even when I bought this place 2 years ago and I got an interest rate that was insane, below what the actual interest rate was at the time, I still had anxiety through the roof, worried about
100%.
everything, right?
Yeah.
And so to
Yeah,
see a big financial institution like Wells Fargo basically be like, you know what? I don't think mortgages are a jam anymore. We need to do something else to make more money. Like, that is
Yep.
kind of worrisome, right?
Yeah. Ringing some bells in your head. And you know, you read all these articles about people who are, you know, student loans. People probably fall a lot of places on whether
Yeah.
student loans should be forgiven, right? But there is no denying that student lending was predatory, right? There's no
Sure.
denying that. The promise of go to school for 4 years, you'll have an amazing job and live the American dream, completely false.
Yep.
Absolutely a bill of goods, you know. And you remember the show Married with Children?
Oh yeah.
Craziest thing is, the most unreal thing about that show was the fact that they could have that house on a guy's salary that sold women's shoes.
Yeah.
Who would have thought, looking back,
Yeah.
that was the most unrealistic thing about that show? But when you look back at what people had on, you know, my dad, you know, not my dad, but let's say, dad worked down at the bowling alley. What did he do? He cleaned shoes? Yeah, we took one vacation a year, you know.
It was
had
paying a
home.
mortgage.
There's food on the table every single night. Right? That ain't real no more.
No.
That is not real anymore. And what you see that consolidation when I was in the financial industry, and I watched that consolidation occurring. So consolidation was always how financial institutions grew.
Right.
There's no mystery there. They grow through merger and acquisition. That is how that works. They, the big fish eat the slightly smaller fish, which eats the slightly smaller fish, which eats the slightly smaller fish. Right? That's the way that whole industry works. And then people sprout up a new bank, and they're like, oh, we're going to focus on, only unsecured lending for rich people. Right, whatever it is. They sprout up. They build enough of a book of assets, and someone's like, sure, we'll buy them. Right, and the big banks are just they pick and choose the best, or they're who they think are the best. They consolidate, whatever else. But watching that consolidation of power at the bank level was really interesting because I've paid very close attention to the consolidation of wealth from a human standpoint. And if you read research and you read what people are talking about, the wealth of the populace is being controlled by a very, very small percentage of the populace now. And it's getting further and further down that path. So the middle class that we all have this kind of in our head, middle class, and this was, go all the way back to the Reagan administration to talk about this, right? You talk about the American dream. That was a middle class dream. Yeah. That is a significantly different thing than it was. Yeah. Today, it's very different than 2023 is way different than 1983. And I think that, I'm in a place of privilege. I've kind of got mine, and I'm not hating on that, but I don't begrudge someone wanting that. And it bothers me that there are people out there who don't get to have that experience. They're 28, 29 years old, right? Got a 4-year degree. Some of them got a master's degree, and they're still having to live in the same house with their parents.
Yeah.
Only because financially, not through any, and it's not, oh my God, it's not avocado toast, right? It's not a latte, right? I don't care what Jamie Dimon says, CEO, JP Morgan Chase. I don't care what he says. It's not avocado toast. A guy worth $185 billion doesn't get to tell you that avocado toast is the reason you don't have something.
Right.
And so I honestly, I empathize with an entire generation of people who are pissed off about this. They should be. Yeah. I don't blame them.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it? Right? That's what are we going to do? And I encourage them to run for office. That's what I encourage them to do. We need younger people in office. And if you're really mad about this stuff, I would encourage you, get involved.
I worry that it's going to come to a headway at some point. It's going to be a headway that not a whole lot of people are going to be okay with.
I mean, when people can't afford food, they get pretty upset.
Yeah.
And when people are telling you I can't afford shelter, because that's what they're telling you right now is I can't afford shelter.
I can't afford. So I have a few friends that say that. When I bought this house, I had reached out to a couple of my friends that were here in Austin. I said, you need to buy right now. You need to buy a house. You need to. You have to. This is the time. Now is the time. And they were like, I could barely afford my rent.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're in a situation where, and I used to say that I used to call this, and those of you that are in Cali will laugh at this, but I used to call it the California syndrome. California is set up so that it is so expensive in California that you can barely live in California and you can't afford to leave California. Right? And that to me is scary. That's a scary thing. And I don't mean that as a diatribe against California. I'm not going to go down that road, right? But unfortunately, I think that's where the whole renter society thing, like that. It's weird that the idea of a renter society is a trigger for me, but that scares me because that is the idea of that is where your people are in a place where they are just barely surviving, right? The rent is set at a level that they can barely survive and they can't necessarily better themselves. Like that should be scary to people because that's where you're headed. So if you got a major financial institution, it's like, well, I'm going to buy, let's say, every single house in this neighborhood that I'm in, and we're just going to rent out all the houses, and we're going to set the rent at such a rate that people could just barely afford the rent. and they can't do themselves any better. Like, that's scary. That is
Yep.
scary to me.
Yeah, absolutely. There was a, Glass-Steagall. Look it up if you want to know why 2008 happened.
Sure.
Right? 1999 was repealed, been around since the 30s, dictated what kind of banks could invest in what kind of things, what kind of what kind of financial institutions could invest in what kind of things.
Sure.
And that was removed in 1999. And as a result, we're having these conversations. When you're talking about, hey, we don't want mortgages. Well, you know what? Maybe you were a mortgage lending company, Wells Fargo.
Yeah.
But you found a more profitable venture, and now you don't do mortgages. And in our chat here on YouTube, Rita was saying, hey, coming from someone that left home at 18, I also don't think there's anything wrong with staying with parents. Take care of them once they get old.
For sure.
And get the house when they die, rinse and repeat. I don't have any problems with that either. And I will tell you, in major cities, so you're talking about New York City, things like that, where there's San Francisco is a good example, right? There's no real estate left. In other words, it's fully developed. It is a fully developed space. Those are sorts of inevitabilities, right? Because people are going to live in that space, and they're just going to stay in it.
Yeah.
And I think really more what maybe you and I are talking about is places like where I live and where you live, where that's not true. There's a lot of places to build a house. There's a lot of places to put a house.
Yeah.
And people don't do that. And so it's a really interesting thing to be watching. And I do, I've, again, got kids. So I'm looking forward to when they are having that conversation. As far as I'm concerned, they can stay with me forever. I'm not that person who's like, oh, I can't wait till they get out of the house. I'm not that guy at all.
Get out of the house.
Nah, I'm on the other end of that spectrum. I'm like, no, well, tell you what, if you get a job, I'll just buy a bigger house together, right? So,
Yeah, man.
love my kids, would love to be with them, but also I want them to have that experience if that's a thing they want to have. If I think my daughter is more like, I want to rent an apartment in the middle of the city, and that's okay. But the option of buying a home and being a homeowner and being a part of a community and putting down roots and all that stuff, that option is no longer available to the vast majority of people who would take advantage of it. Yeah. And people would call, what's interesting about a house, and you and I have both experienced this, is kind of unintentionally, right? You can actually kind of happen into something that is it contributes significantly to your net worth, right? If you bought in a place that grew, if you made good real estate decisions, you can kind of be like, I'm just living here doing my thing. And then you turn around in 10 years and you're like, oh, snap.
Yeah.
I have a thing of significant worth. And from a financial standpoint, that backup, right? Having equity in a home, right? And equity, for anyone who doesn't know what that means, it means the home is worth more than you owe on it. So let's say you owe $10 on it and it's worth $100. That $90 of pad that you have in your life is incredibly comforting. You hope not to use it, but if you ever had to, you could. And people aren't getting that. As a renter, you don't get that. That cushion does not exist for renters. And it's okay to make the decision that you don't want it. That's okay. But an awful lot of people would prefer to have it, and they don't have the option to, anymore, and it's getting harder. And I think that trend of it getting harder, Wells Fargo backing out the mortgage world is not the first, but it seems to be another domino, right, in a chain of events.
Well, and I think you hit on it too. Is like I do worry because you don't see a lot of local banks anymore, a lot of local credit unions so much anymore, or they may be, but they're owned by whoever, Chase, Wells Fargo.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
BlackRock, whatever the case may be.
Yep.
Right. So.
Yep.
Yeah.
So lighter note, we're gonna move on, and I will say this one, pretty interesting to me. It did happen 2 weeks ago. It happened after our last podcast, right? So it's had a little bit of time to marinate in the world. So
sure.
There's a zoo in China, and they have some animals in this zoo. They're called sun bears, and they're from Malaysia. And some pictures and videos emerged of these sun bears, which are interesting looking creatures, just interacting with the audience of the zoo. And I'm not gonna lie, these bears do look like a dude in a bear suit when they stand up. And so there are people who said that's not a real bear. That's a guy in a bear suit. And so this zoo in China has had to go to great lengths to be like, no, seriously, this is
not a person
bears.
in a suit.
Right? And they're inviting people to come in and meet the bears. And so I just thought, how ridiculous is it that's where we are. It's absolutely a bear. It's a sun bear.
Let me ask you this question: the people that are going to believe or do believe that this was, for some reason, this is the hill that China would want to die on. I'm putting people in bear suits at the zoo in China. A lot of just Chinese hating, and I'm not saying that I love the Chinese government by any way or means, but if this is the hill we're going to die on, to think that this is the lengths that China has to go into in order to fake out its people, like, come on, man.
Yeah, that's what. Well, I mean, okay, so there are Chinese zoos who have been known, and I say Chinese zoos. I think you're right. It's not. There are zoos, that have been known to pass off dogs. Oh, it's a timber wolf. It's a gray wolf. Dude, that's a Labrador. That's not a gray wolf.
He's got some shaggy hair. He needs a haircut.
Right.
Is what it's
like
going on.
Tiger King was an entire documentary about people who do this kind of crap. So it's not unique to China, to your point.
Right.
And yeah, it you know, the whole concept of it blowing up on the internet and being like, oh, this is the thing the internet's going to talk about today, right? We got a lot of stuff going on, guys. The whole planet's on fire, basically. Right? There's a lot going on, and people are like, that's a guy in a bear suit.
That's a guy in a bear suit. And the Chinese are trying to hide it. Like, what?
Yeah, and it's the Chinese with their balloons and bear suits, right? Like, it's
oh
like,
my gosh, balloons and bear suits. That's great.
That's the thing we're going to go at today, guys. And
that might be the clip of the podcast right there. Balloons and bear suits.
They're damn balloons and bear suits.
Jesus Christ.
Where's my pitchfork?
Anyway.
That to me is I woke up, I was looking at the news, and I was like,
yeah.
Why
is this making news? Why is this
what
the
is
news
happening
right now?
Yeah, I mean, thank God it wasn't Elon Musk or Donald Trump, because that's what the news is always about. One of those two guys. I mean, I would take a bear suit.
That's what the podcast is
suit,
about to be about: is Elon Musk, Trump, or bear suits. I mean,
that's apparently where it's going to be all the time. And is it a dude or is it a bear? I think that.
Oh my gosh!
You should do the the CAPTCHA when you do not a robot. Yep. You should have to identify
the
bear or guy in bear suit.
Yeah. So I mean, this is interesting that we also, this subject is 100% tied into the social media conversation that we have.
Oh yeah.
Which is, I still think, tied into the dark ages of
well, okay,
technology
conversation. That's fair. Think about it. Let's be Architect 7 Archaeologist 7.
Yeah.
Archaeologists happen. We're digging.
I'm telling you.
Wait. They believed it was a man in a bear suit? They believed in magical spells? They cut people's heads open to erase their memories? Like,
oh my God.
How do you differentiate? Like, we're that dumb.
Why are we as people so stupid? Who had this thought originally? That's what I want to know. Who had the thought?
Someone
like, that is a dude in a bear suit. Like, is that some big influencer that said that on social media and it just got out of hand? Or
here's what I will tell you, and this is going to sound like it's not true, but it is 100% true. A buddy of mine every Christmas season is a Coca-Cola bear. He dresses up in the Coca-Cola polar bear suit. Yeah, they do the Coca-Cola polar bears, right? Where they do the pictures, and he does the whole thing, and kids come up and they're like, they take the picture that he does that. He's an improv comedian, and he somehow got a connection. He loves doing it. He does it for free, and loves doing it. But I will say, I've seen guys in bear suits. I think that's a sun bear.
You heard it here first, folks. Yep. 7 is a guy in a bear suit expert. He knows the difference.
I'm like the Sasquatch hunter of guys in bear suits.
Sasquatch hunter.
I know all their calls.
Oh my God.
Sam Squanch.
Sam Squanch.
I can hunt Sam Squanch. It's absolutely a sun bear. I think that's what to put a bow on that story. It absolutely is a sun bear. They're weird looking creatures. They look hilarious when they stand up.
They really are. I mean, look, I get it. There's one image that I always see if you look it up, because it's the sun bear standing on its hind legs, and it's the back fat. The way the back fat scrunches up. So people are like, that's a suit. Look at that. That's how a suit react. Like, bro, as one fat guy that understands back fat, okay?
That's the direction we're going with this. I have seen myself.
I understand back fat, okay? But no, it's sad that for whatever reason we think that the evil folks across the pond have to fill their zoos with people in animal suits.
And it would be easier to get some guy to stand in 105-degree weather every day in a bear suit than it would be just to get a sun bear. I mean, I watched Tiger King. You can get animals. It'd be easier to get the sun bear.
It would literally get easier to get the sun bear.
Yeah, the sun bear is the easier play there. Trust me.
He's
they don't.
like,
they,
look,
what,
man, I get 3 square meals a day. I get water and a ball to play with. I'm happy, you know.
I'm good to go. I get to yell at these kids, right? Like some dudes.
I get a
like,
wave.
I got
People act like I'm a person. I don't even understand what's going on.
I'm gonna take the mask off. You don't give me a $10 an hour raise. I'm taking my mask off and revealing all of it. Right? I'm gonna take you down, Zoo.
Why are people so stupid? Why are we as humans?
Well,
so stupid?
and things have the whole going viral thing, which is a thing that's fairly new to society, right? We don't understand yet really how it works. But when you got stuff that can go viral, it's really unpredictable the kind of outcomes you can have. I promise you, the people at that zoo were like, they woke up one morning like, what? I get these emails. Guys, I'm getting emails about the sun bears. I've gotten 776,000 emails about a sun bear.
The local commissar that runs the Chinese. I don't even understand this. Like, I don't even believe what is happening here.
Is sun bear code for something, y'all? Like, they're looking around like, wait, our sun bears? Is a dude in a suit?
Oh, God.
How did this happen? They probably went out there and pinched the things like, are you right?
Maybe it is a person. Is it a person?
Maybe it is a person. Maybe it's been a person the whole time.
He gets mauled. Nope, not a person.
Nope. That's how we lost Jimmy.
That's how Jimmy had to be. We did another Jimmy.
Yeah, we're out of Jimmy's, guys. Wait, is Jimmy the one wearing the suit? No, there's nobody wearing a suit.
No, it's actually a bear. Check that off. Make sure you check that off on the stats.
Once again, it's not a guy in a suit. A great story, and it was one of my favorites, that came up recently, and hopefully we have some more come up in the next 2 weeks news cycle so we can talk about fun stuff like that.
What's hilarious is you mentioned that to me, and I was like, what? And I had to Google it because I was like, what? What are you talking about?
Yeah. Are you serious?
Well, yep. Like, I feel like I'm saying that a lot, but why are we so stupid? Why are people so stupid? Like,
why is this what's on social media, right? Like, why?
Oh my gosh.
The algorithms conspired with the dumbest human beings and led me to sun bear is dude in suit. Oh my God. All right, Happa.
I'm telling you, that back fat. Is that back fat? We'll fool you every time.
They have loose skin, right? It's the Malaysian sun bear. It has loose skin. I get it, but
it's known now. It's a known thing.
It is. It is.
I don't think it's a known thing.
It is known now. I know more about sun bears than I ever knew before.
Right? Hands down.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
All right, Happa, what you watching, buddy?
Oh, I'm all over the place, man. Well, beyond going through the Expanse again.
Oh, yes, you are.
Falling in love with the Expanse.
You did? Okay. All right. I told you when we talked about it the other day, you said, hey, I'm going to rewatch this. So you've started it, and you've inspired me. I'll probably try to start it too. I got other stuff I want to watch, but it's still I mean, God, I loved that show, man. I loved that show. I
nerd out, and I've told you this before, and I told Deacon, our friend Deacon, about this before. I nerd out about sci-fi shows that have believable science fiction. I don't know if that makes sense.
Right.
No, it does. It's like believable science fiction is the physics are in there. Like case in point, Battlestar Galactica, the remake. The reason I loved it because a lot of the technology that was live in that show was stuff that I would see on warships today, like their phones and the way the doors acted, and like just stupid little details. Like that stuff to me just sends me into nerdgasm. That's a word. Yes, you can use that from now on. Congratulations.
So a whiskey drink or tequila?
It might be.
We should make a whiskey. We should invent a whiskey drink.
Nerdgasm. I
Yeah.
feel like somebody somewhere had to have had that already. But I just legitimately love shows like that, and when you have a show that is a soap opera in space, essentially that's what Battlestar Galactica was, and that's what Expanse is.
Yeah.
I will fall 100% in love with it, and that is, yeah. I've been watching that again. I finished up Witcher, the season 3 Witcher. Would I recommend season 3 Witcher to people? Not really. Not really.
Yeah.
And
So that's a not really.
it
for
was
you?
something I would literally put on in the background while I make dinner, and then I would go watch something else when I'd eat. Like it's, I mean, well, you could talk about that on another episode. Maybe we need to do a full on entertainment topic. But that show, I mean, even if you look at Rotten Tomatoes, the Witcher Netflix series is getting just pooped on. Like it's not great. And,
It's not getting it done, huh?
Nah. But Strange New Worlds, though. Let's backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
Strange New Worlds. And the reason I'm backtracking, and this is actually, it may take a second to talk about it, but Strange New Worlds, the latest episode they had last Thursday was a. Are you ready for this, Seven?
Maybe.
It's Star Trek. It was a musical.
Star Trek musical?
Let me tell you, Rita and I are watching Strange New Worlds every week that the episodes come out, and I had mentioned that I was excited for this episode. Okay, and the reason I say excited is not necessarily because I love musicals. I don't mind musicals. I have yet to see a single episode of Star Trek Strange New Worlds, which is one of 2 Star Trek series that have come out in the last like 5-6 years.
Yep.
The
What was the
only
other one? There was another one that was
Discovery.
like Discovery. That's right. Yep.
That I will say as a Trek fan is not Star Trek. It's a sci-fi
Okay.
show. Watch it as a sci-fi show. Don't watch it as a Star Trek fan. It'll
Okay.
just piss you off, make you angry, and you'll not like it.
But
there's a
Strange New
reason
Worlds.
There's a reason Discovery got canceled. Okay.
Okay.
Put it that way. Strange New Worlds. Every episode is Star Trek. Like if you're a nerd like me, hands down Star Trek, and they Star Trekked their way into a musical, and it actually fit. It was actually, I was not only laughing and enjoying it, but I was entertained. And there's a lot of hate on social media.
Oh, really?
for
So some
that
people
episode.
are not loving it, huh?
There's a lot of hardcore Trekkies that were like, "That's not how it should go," blah blah blah. But they spun it into a Star Trek episode that, in my opinion, was legit. Like it was a legit. There was scientific reasons why they were all singing and everything. And the thing that I loved was I do like seeing shows where they take an actor or a lead and they kind of show the range that you don't necessarily see of that actor in another episode, you know? And it showed and highlighted, in my opinion, the range that all these actors had. And it was amazing. Like, it really was amazing. And it's coming to, I think this week's is the season finale. But I still will say The Strange New Worlds is worth a watch. It's on Amazon. It's a great Star Trek before Kirk Star Trek.
Okay. All right.
Fantastic. It's entertaining, man. It's worth a watch.
So that you were mentioning, shows that bring out someone's acting abilities, and
Yeah.
sometimes you don't expect it. And I remember, and look, if you're listening, don't take this as a show recommendation. So disclaimer, this show is not for everyone, but Peacemaker. It's a series, and it's John Cena.
Okay.
And there are, Peacemaker was a character if you watch the Suicide Squad movies, and I didn't really love him as a character in those, meathead kind of character. But the show is it's similar. It's what you're talking about, and it's like, oh my gosh, they're giving John Cena the ability to have a range that you're really not prepared for, and that can make me really fall in love with a show.
Yes.
And so, yeah, when you're talking about like a show that's like it lets characters have all this range and lets these actors really explore these characters, that that can really, really make a show for me. So it's
I
probably
love
worth me
that
checking
show,
out at
by the
some
way.
point.
Peacemaker is fantastic.
Oh, Peacemaker. Dude, that show completely look, you're gonna turn it on. Anybody who's listening is thinking about it and has been on the fence. You should watch it.
Go watch it.
If you're thinking about watching it, you should. If you've never heard of it, you might look. It's got some stuff. All right, it's got some stuff, but you're gonna have to be okay with that. But I'll tell you this: you're gonna turn it on, and the opening sequence is gonna you're gonna look at that and think, "What am I doing?"
Yeah.
And you're gonna get about halfway through the episode, and you're gonna think, "No, really, what am I doing?" And then at some point, into the first episode, maybe the second episode, you're gonna be like, "This is fantastic." And so it's like it. You start watching it, and you're like, "Okay, campy, whatever," and then it's like, "Oh, no, this is really good."
Yeah.
Like really good. And so I can definitely see when you say, Strange New Worlds, you say that's like it's letting the actors explore the space. That is some of the most rewarding stuff to watch. You get invested in it. You're in it with them, right? You become part of like, oh my God, they did something I didn't expect. So I do think that stuff is really cool. So yeah, so Strange New Worlds is what you got going on, right? And you're rewatching The Expanse. So you're on a science fiction kick.
Yeah, man. I'm a nerd. I can't help it. What are you watching?
What am I watching? What have we been watching lately? Righteous Gemstones.
I need to watch that. You've been telling me I need to watch that.
Yeah. Righteous Gemstones again. One I can't really recommend to everyone. All right, look. I grew up and live in the buckle of the Bible Belt. All right, I am in Birmingham, Alabama. Okay, so I will tell you the religious nature of this place. I cannot overstate it. And so what I will say is Righteous Gemstones, I can't recommend it to everyone because I'm around so many people who would find it just so unbearably distasteful because of their religious beliefs. But so if you're someone who's like, watches South Park and gets offended, don't watch Righteous Gemstones. Right? Okay. Like South Park can be offensive to everyone. Yeah. So, but if you're someone who can be like, they got me on that one, but it's still funny though.
For sure.
Still funny, then Righteous Gemstones is for you because it's about a family who has made quite a lot of money. And when I say quite a lot of money, what I mean is quite a lot of money by being evangelical preacher family.
Which is a thing. That is a thing.
It is a thing. Yep. It is a thing. And if you watch it, I got to be honest, if you watch it and you're into some of that and that's how your life goes, it's going to hit a little bit close to home.
Oh my goodness.
It's John Goodman. John Goodman. What is the guy's name in the Ballad of Ricky Bobby? He's the number 2 guy. He's hilarious. What is? You know what I'm talking about. As soon as I say it, I just can't remember his name. What is his name? Danny McBride. Is that it?
Danny McBride. Yeah. Danny McBride. He's
Danny
Jesse
McBride.
Gemstone.
Yep. So it's John Goodman, Danny McBride, right? There's some other folks you're going to recognize.
I'm always
in there.
down to see John Goodman in anything, to be honest with you.
Dude, he is so good in this because he's John Goodman.
Yeah.
Like one of those actors, like we were talking about, one of those people that just love to watch, right?
Yeah, man.
The dude abides, right? And you got him in that movie. Was it? Damn it, Tony! You walk into a room like a child.
I'm telling you, he's all holding a gun.
Oh yeah. So yeah, so I've been working my way through Righteous Gemstones. We're on the 3rd. There's 3 seasons so far. We're on the 3rd season. About
I might have to
3
start
episodes
watching that, man. I'm about to start watching.
It's worth it. If you do, tell me because you're gonna. You won't be able to stand it. You'll text me and you'll be like, "Oh my God." That's how that's gonna go. If you start watching it, you're absolutely gonna be like,
"Fair."
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yep.
Fair. So, I've been trying to hold back talking about this. Because I know what your answer is going to be about what you're playing. I already know what you're playing.
Oh, yeah.
Because I'll log on to Steam to load up a game, and I'll see there's 7. There's 7 last couple days.
Dude. So, all right. Well, let's talk about BattleBit first. Because you and I have played BattleBit Remastered together, and we very much enjoy it. We did note, as we were... Oh, it's a great game. And, I'm going to continue to just put as much praise as I can on that development team, on that game, and how they've handled themselves because we enjoy the game, but there are some things about the game that are broken. It's 3 guys, right? They made the game, and it's not perfect, and that's okay. It's a great game regardless. But one of the things that was in particular broken is submachine guns in this game, right? And they're just overpowered, right? But what I want to do is throw praise at these developers for the patch they released this week. So these guys come out and they release a patch for BattleBit, and it's bold. The
Yeah.
kind of changes they're willing to make to the game to make it better are bold. And so, yes, do I think the game is amazing? Absolutely. Do I think that the game was being developed by 3 people is insane? Yes. Can
I
I?
can't believe
Do I?
still.
I still can't believe it. And how
Yeah.
well it was done from the get go, I can't believe it.
Yeah.
And now what I can say with confidence is I can't believe how good they are at tweaking things.
Yeah.
That's just impressive. These guys, if there's a big there's a big studio out there, they need to be looking at giving these guys a check.
Yeah, it'll be hard for me to say anything bad. Well, I don't have anything bad to say about the developers of BattleBit Remastered anyway. This
Yeah.
2.0 patch that they released yesterday, day before
Yep.
yesterday. Uh,
Time is a flat circle. I don't remember, but it was in the last 2 days.
the way that they do balance, they're seeing the feedback on their Discord and in social media, and they are acting accordingly. That to me is phenomenal. That they are doing that, and they are acting. It's not like they are waiting a year to act on that feedback either. They are acting fairly quickly on said feedback. It's been phenomenal. It's been a great experience.
And I do think, we've talked about it a bit. I think they've got some room to go, but now
sure.
that I've seen this patch, I believe they'll do it. I'm going to keep playing that game. So you and I will
Yeah.
play that together. We've been playing PGA 2K23
Yeah, man.
with Deacon quite a bit. And surprisingly, I'm into golf. I've gotten back into golf recently. Deacon's into golf. He's plays. You don't. But we have found that to be an incredibly relaxing time to sit around and play. However, that's not why you were asking me.
Yep.
So I picked up a game.
Sex with bears. That's what I would hear about.
Well, I'm not there yet.
Oh, okay.
So, but I'll let you know. I'll be texting you, I'm sure, like, oh my God, happened. So, this game is Larian Studios, all right, Lariam. And I will tell you, it's a CRPG. It's called Baldur's Gate 3. Now, a CRPG is an old school term, computer role-playing game. And the reason it exists is because it came from people who were used to playing tabletop games.
Yeah.
Right? They're playing Dungeons and Dragons or whatever. Now, having said all that, I was never into those games. I was into shooters. I was into action games. I was into a lot of stuff. And I played a game called Disco Elysium. That was a gateway drug for me. It's way closer to reading an interactive novel than it is to playing a game, right? Disco Elysium is. But the themes in it are deep and heavy. Socialism versus communism versus there's sexism and racism and these things
Why is the audio gone?
Why is the rum all gone? Technical difficulties.
Are you guys hearing us now? Why audio gone?
Well, maybe just my audio is gone, and we need to wrap anyway.
No, I'm seeing your
Oh,
audio.
you can. All right. Well, all right. Well, the game's good. Baldur's Gate 3.
Oh my god. At the end of the day, Baldur's Gate, $59.99. You get the whole game. No microtransactions. Amazing.
I just can't. The gaming industry. I was actually talking to my wife about 9-10 weeks ago, and I had the games that we play together. We play World of Warships together. We have for some time. We play BattleBit together. We play some golf together. But on the whole of it, there was nothing coming out that was incredibly compelling. You got Zelda, right? That came out for the Switch.
Yeah.
You got a couple of games, but most of the games were rehashes. They were the Call of Duty series. They were and I'm not knocking those, but those are minor changes to a series that exists. And
You got to have something new every now and then.
Yeah, I played Dredge, right? And that was a super original game. It was a very short game, but super original. Really loved it. And then you get like Day of the Diver, which I haven't checked that out. Right now, I've got this Expanse game coming out. I bought it, haven't played Chapter 1 yet. You get to play as Drummer, by the way, which is my favorite character in the whole series. Amos or Drummer, one or the other is going to be my favorite.
Amos would be mine, but yeah.
Yeah, Amos is pretty good. But so all of a sudden, since I went and complained about it, the universe was like, "Well, stop complaining. Here's some great games." So now I'm like, I have a wealth of games I gotta go play. But yeah, so that's where I'm at right now. It's definitely Baldur's Gate 3, and then hanging out with you playing the multiplayer game.
Yeah, I mean, to me today, because there's two games right now, Baldur's Gate and Remnant 2. Remnant. I can't remember which one it is, but in this day and age today, to have a game released $59.99 and you don't have microtransactions was actually I couldn't believe it. Like, it blew me away.
That's bold. Yeah. I mean, you're not, even if you're just getting microtransactions to have an outfit, right? Even if it's the seemingly innocent microtransactions, which a lot of games have. And I'm not knocking games for having microtransactions necessarily.
Right.
I do think some games, in particular EA was an example, where they got, with the Star Wars Battlefront series, they kind of got, a lot of community backlash for including well, FIFA, right? They went too far.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, here's $60 for a game in PGA 2K23. Every time we open it up, it's like, I know you paid $60 for this game, but here's some. Don't you want to buy a hat? What about
really
some
cool
shoes?
Golf pants or something?
And what about some sunglasses that ain't really sunglasses? And I'm like, no, thanks.
Yeah.
And so that's really the direction games had kind of gone. And to see a couple of games come out and be like, no, we're not going to do it that way. And then to see that there's the community is supporting it, right, which is cool. But it's supporting a pretty whole genre that has kind of died out. There's
100%.
not a lot of those kinds of games out there. So I'm really hopeful that there are people out there saying, they had a dream of making a great game. They have everything they need to do it, but they didn't think the community would support it. I hope they look around and like, oh, I could make a great game.
Too. And I that might be the big takeaway from here, because right now, I mean, when Remnant 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 released, I read somewhere that they were the both of them were some of the most successful games to date for this year, and some of the most streamed games, like highest population of viewers.
I'll tell you right now. So I was pulling it up while you were saying that. On Twitch right now, there are over 80,000 people watching Baldur's Gate 3 be streamed. There are almost 43,000 watching Remnant 2 be streamed. And these are games that there's no sweaty tryhard in this game.
Right.
The people who are watching this be streamed is a story. It is very, very tightly woven stories. It's an art form into itself to make a game that has got a story at that level.
Yeah.
And I love seeing that content creators are being rewarded for playing games like that.
Yeah, for sure. I have a problem playing games like that, like Baldur's Gate 3, because I will play it, and then I'll just get sidetracked and then never finish it. And so I typically don't spend the money on those games because I have an understanding in my head that I just probably will never get around to finishing.
Yeah, I tend to be completionist on these games,
Fair.
and so you've got people who are like, "Oh, I played it and it was a great week," and I'm like,
Right.
Because so Act One in Baldur's Gate, I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but I've been told it was 100 hours plus. Act
Oh
One, I
wow.
think there's 3 acts,
Wow.
and so I'm a bit of a completionist, and there's people out there who'll be like, "Oh, I played it for a couple of weeks, I finished it, great." I'll play it for months.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I will stick with it if the game's good enough because I need a game that lets me sit down sometimes, throw on headphones, grab some whiskey, and just have fun.
Sure. Yeah.
No pressure, fun, right? And
Sure.
there's too few of those games around now.
Yeah.
Maybe sometimes I don't want to get in a server and get shot in the face 65 times.
Yeah, for sure.
Sometimes that sounds like a great time. And then other
Yeah.
times I'm like, I really just kind of want to sit down and take a deep breath and grab my whiskey and just kind of chill. And I need that game. So I don't care if it takes me 2 years to finish it. I'll finish it.
No, it's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Well, bud, I think that's what we got for today.
That's about it. We're a little bit over, but I'm okay with
Yeah,
that.
we went. It's almost 2 hours and 3 minutes, so
So-
it's not too bad.
So I went through some, as one does in life, you go through some trials and tribulations in your life, and I had some reassessment that occurred before I left the military, and I'm gonna say this because it's important to me. It's been kind of an important thing for me as an adult that people understand. I went through therapy in my later years in the Navy, and to me, I think everybody should go through therapy. If you're okay with yourself and you think you're fine, I think you should go through therapy. If you're not, I think you should go through. I think everyone should go through therapy because it legitimately helps you understand either certain things of your way of being and reactions to things are correct, or maybe you could handle it differently, or whatever. It was honestly the greatest thing that ever happened to me was going through therapy. But one of the things that I did do that was suggested to me when I was going through therapy by my therapist was that I write down thoughts, and then you wait. They said 72 hours. Sometimes I would wait a week and I'd come back to it, reread it, and then you'd kind of answer that thought and extrapolate. Because when you write stuff down, it activates a different part of your brain, and you think about it differently. Than
When you say it, let's make sure we say this right, because you and I are
Yeah.
both big fans of what you're talking about right there, and I don't want to
Yeah.
lose that point.
Yeah.
You say write stuff down. What you mean is take out a pen,
Yes.
write it on a piece of paper. That's
Yes.
what when you say. It's not
So
like
thought
just type
going
it out.
to your fingers into a vessel and
it's
writing
the
it.
physical. The
Yes.
physical interaction does something different. Yes, I'm with you. So they said
it is a different
write
part
something
of your
down.
brain that's activated, and
So,
so
the advice you got was write it down and then revisit in 72 hours.
Yep.
That's how that.
Yep. And what I did is the first few thoughts that I wrote down about a week later when I went to my next therapy session, the therapist was like, I don't need you to read to me those. Those are yours. But I want you to read them and think about them and maybe hone them a little bit more and then write the next few thoughts down or whatever the case would be. And what it ended up being was, I don't even know what number I'm up to now, but I have literally a list that I call Happa's Rules for Living. And so I had asked Seven before we started the podcast, like, what did you think about me reading a few of these every podcast? I'm only going to read like maybe 3 or 4, or maybe 5 of these, but I have found that these rules I try to live every day as much as I can with this thought process in my head, and it's actually done me well. And my number one rule, and you guys, those of you who see me on stream or in social media, you might have seen what I have. I have a sign that's up in my stream room, but the very first rule, and this has been something that I've tried to live by in my adult age from day one, was work hard, stay humble. And it's literally just always, whatever you're doing, try to do the best you can, but understand that you're not the best at whatever you're doing. There's always somebody that's better, or you could always be getting better, or whatever the case would be. Number 2, I think, applies to kind of like what we talked about a little bit with bullying and stuff like that. We're all different. That's okay. Like, everybody's different. It's okay to not be the same. Like, you don't need to be the same. Number 3 is one thing that I have always tried to lead my life and live by, and I actually have a sign that's actually by my front door. So when you come into my house, you'll see it, and it says either offer kindness or move along. Like, in other words, be good. Just be good to each other. Like, either that or just go away. Like, I don't have time for that negativity. Number four is, it sounds silly, but hold the door. Like, I literally had hold the door when hold the door was a thing. It's like, I actually is a pretty legit like statement. If you're walking into a place or walking out of a place and someone's coming in or coming out, like, hold the door for them. Just be a better person, you know. And then number 5 is one I'm sure that a lot of our parents instilled into us, is just say please and thank you. Like, just be kind. Say please and thank you to each other. It's like, it's not asking too much. I remember I think I was in Virginia. No, I was in Newport, Rhode Island, and I was at a grocery store, and all the baskets had been left at the checkout lines. There was none at the door, and all I needed was a basket. I remember specifically all these people in line to check out, and I said, "Excuse me, do you mind if I squeeze in here and can I please grab one of those baskets?" And the lady was like, "You're really nice." I was like, because I just said please and thank you,
because I did the bare minimum of interacting with another human.
Like, wow, that really blows me away. But yeah, so that's the first 5. So that's the first 5 we'll leave off on. And
cool, I like those.
Yeah, and we'll get through a bunch of these. A lot of these, there's why is it doing this?
We got to push through it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, folks. I don't know why there's no audio. I did note that for some reason the audio was muted again. I don't know why that was. I'll have to take a look at that.
It'll play out on the audio only version for sure, though.
Yeah, I apologize for that. You guys watch the stream, but either way, if the point of the thing was, if you need to get a hold of Seven, or you get a hold of me,
away from HAPA, they say.
Oh my gosh! Or get a hold of Real Talk with HAPA and Seven. Shoot us an email, message us here, leave a comment on the YouTube video, or the case would be. We'd love to hear from you guys, some good ideas for conversation topics and what have you. And actually,
we're going to do, in particular, HAPA, one of the things we talked about, we're going to do a podcast at some point about historical events and our thoughts on those events. So if you have ideas for those events, let us know. We are trying to compile a list of those particular events and sit down and do a couple hours about, things that happen in history and what we thought about those. And I think that could be a lot of fun. So that's one we're actually requesting. We're definitely requesting some feedback from folks on.
For sure. But either way, if there's nothing else and I can't screw up the audio anymore, I think that's it. That's it for me and Seven for this week's episode.
Yep.
That's it. Just yep. That's all you got.
Yep.
Anyway, every 2 weeks, folks. So like this Tuesday, we just did an episode. Not next, but the following Tuesday, we will try to do another episode. We'll try to get the episode out on YouTube, and if not, do look for us on any and all your apps out there. We're on, I think, just about every single one that I could think of.
Yeah, we generally post the
adding them as
audio
we
only
go.
the next day, so usually those come out on Wednesday or Thursday. But you can get them anywhere, and encourage you to download those, listen to it on the drive to work. What better to listen to than the dulcet tones of Happa Fodder?
I don't have that voice. That's not, dulcet tones are not how my voice is described. Anyway, hope
Dulcet
you all
tones.
have a great night. You guys take care of each other. Later.
Bye, everybody.